Why was she kneeling in the gunfire when everyone told her to run? The command came sharp through the canyon. Fall back, medic, fall back. But Arya Kine didn't move, couldn't move. Not with Sergeant Mason Grant bleeding beneath her hands, his blood warm against her fingers, soaking through the gauze faster than she could apply pressure. The gunfire was relentless. Bullets hammered the rocks around them, sending sparks and dust into the air like rain made of violence. Her brown hair, tied in that practical knot she always wore, clung to her temple with sweat. The heavy medical pack on her shoulders felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds, but her hands were steady, surgically precise, blocking out everything except the wound in front of her. A round screamed past her head, so close she felt the heat of it, so close it sliced through a thread on her pack strap before burying itself in stone. Mason groaned beneath her. His face was pale, going paler. "Doc," he rasped, "leave me, just leave me." But Arya's eyes lifted just for a split second, and in that moment something inside her shifted, something she'd buried 3 years ago, something that had been sleeping, waiting, watching. The medic's calm became something else entirely. Something dangerous. She had been deployed to Ravenspire Canyon as nothing more than a combat medic. That's what her file said. That's what everyone believed. 27 years old, 4 successful missions logged, 0 confirmed kills. Back at Iron Watch Outpost, most of the operators dismissed her completely. She was background, the bandage carrier, the one who showed up after the real soldiers did the real work. "Don't ever give her a rifle," Sergeant Rohr joked during briefings, grinning like it was the funniest thing in the world. "She heals wounds. She doesn't win battles." Arya never answered. She never defended herself, never argued. Instead, she stacked her instruments in perfect rows, logged each case in exact detail, carried the weight of unspoken things in her silence. But her precision, that wasn't just medical. She could spot infections before they spread, notice a fracture before the bone gave way, see things others missed. Once, while removing shrapnel from Corporal Eli Tor's thigh, she paused, frowned at the fragment's shape, turned it over in her fingers like it was telling her a story. "This isn't ordinary ammunition," she muttered, more to herself than to him. "It's precision military grade. Someone out there is hunting us." Eli chuckled through the sting of antiseptic. "You sure know your bullets, Doc, but can you shoot them?" Arya's hands froze, just for a heartbeat. Her reply came quiet, almost like she was afraid of her own words. "I know enough." What Phantom Team never realized was that at the bottom of Arya's medkit, hidden under layers of gauze and bandages, lay a relic. A brass casing, hollowed smooth by years of touch. It hung on a thin chain beneath her uniform, worn against her heartbeat. A breathing reminder. A keepsake from the one who had taught her that between heartbeats, time could slow, and impossible shots became inevitable. His name was Darius Kine, her brother, her shadow, her teacher, one of Europe's most decorated snipers. Before she ever patched wounds, she had been his spotter in the frozen highlands of Dragar, learning how to read the wind like scripture, how to steady her lungs until the world went silent. "The rifle doesn't make you a sniper," Darius told her in their last training together. "It's knowing how to stop time when everyone else rushes forward." She had sworn never to touch a weapon again the day Darius died, buried her medals, erased her records, became only the healer. But in Ravenspire, with bullets carving the air and men bleeding at her knees, Arya's fingers brushed cold steel. The SR-21 rifle lay inches away, and in that moment the medic's wall began to crack. 3 years she buried the sniper. 3 years she swore the healer had won. But Ravenspire was about to wake what she tried to kill inside herself. At Iron Watch Outpost, Arya Kine was just the medic, but there were things about her that didn't quite fit. She asked too many questions about bullet fragments. She sketched ballistic arcs in her downtime instead of playing cards with the others. And after hours, when the compound went quiet, Arya sometimes slipped to the empty range. No live fire. Just dry drills, shouldering the rifle, steadying her breath, squeezing an empty trigger, a ritual to remind her body of movements she claimed she had forgotten. Beneath her uniform, resting warm against her pulse, The brass casing hung from a thin chain, etched into it in script so small it needed magnification to read. Aim when your heartbeat is slowest. Her brother Darius's last lesson. The one truth she could never erase. The briefing sounded simple: hostage extraction, canyon under light resistance, minimal sniper threat. That was the intel, and that intel was dead wrong. At dawn, Phantom Team 7 advanced into Ravenspire Canyon, Captain Halden at the lead, Sergeant Rohr on flank. Arya trailing 50 meters behind, her role clear: stay back, patch the wounded, evacuate if things collapsed. The first shot shattered the illusion. Sergeant Mason Grant dropped instantly, his shoulder spilling crimson. Arya sprinted to him before the echo had even finished bouncing across the canyon walls. "Medic, fall back," Halden's order cracked through comms, but she was already sliding over rubble. Gauze pressed hard against Grant's wound, bullets whining so close she could feel their heat. One tore a scar into the wall beside her, another chipped stone where her head had been seconds before. These weren't panic sprays, they were surgical, they were hunting her. Her mind, sharper than she wanted to admit, dissected the sounds as if she were back in Dragger Highlands with Darius. Subsonic rounds, suppressed weapon, roughly 900 meters, elevated angle, northeast ridge. She shouted over the comm. "Sniper, northeast ridge, 900 out." Rohr scanned through his glass. "Negative, Doc, no eyes." But Arya saw what they couldn't. The way the bullet strikes nudged the team left, then forward, herding them into a choke point. This wasn't harassment fire, it was steering fire. In less than 30 seconds, Phantom Team would be exposed in a perfect kill funnel. Grant gripped her sleeve, his face drained of blood. "Doc, you've got to get out of here." A third round struck, blasting stone fragments across her cheek. This time she caught it. The faint glint of muzzle flashed behind the twisted wreck of a radio tower, and with that glint came a deeper horror. Not one sniper, not even two, three, working in sync. Grant's SR-21 rifle lay in the dirt beside him, its black steel whispering like a ghost from her past. Her hand hovered over it, trembling. "I swore I'd never." Another shot hit. Sergeant Eli Torres spun, blood streaking his side. Time slowed. Her medic's oath screamed inside her head. "Go to him, heal him." But her brother's voice cut sharper. "If you don't act now, everyone dies." Her fingers closed around the rifle stock. The weight was dreadful and familiar. Left hand braced, right hand high, cheek to cold steel. The world shrank into crosshairs and breath. In, hold, out, hold. Stillness found her, and with it her hunter's eyes opened again. One breath, one heartbeat, one shot, and the medic became something else entirely. What happens when the person you thought you buried comes back to life? Through the scope, Arya Kine tracked faint movement near the shattered radio tower. Range, 947 meters. Wind, slight left cross. Elevation, 12 degrees. Her finger tightened. The rifle jolted against her shoulder. 800 meters away, the first sniper crumpled into dust. Arya shifted instantly, recalculating, her next line already forming in her mind. Their formation snapped into focus. A diamond set, overlapping kill zones. Classic doctrine meant to trap and bleed. The spotter lifted binoculars, unaware his seconds were numbered. Crack. He fell, lenses slipping from his lifeless grip. The third tried to break position, scrambling sideways. Arya led her shot by 3 meters. Another crack, another silence. The canyon held its breath. "Jesus Christ," Captain Halden muttered through static. 3 targets, minutes." Arya lowered the SR-21, her hands trembling as the rush ebbed. For a moment she looked almost afraid of herself. Mason Grant stared at her, torn between awe and unease. "Where the hell did you learn to shoot like that?" Nearby, Eli Torres groaned through bloodied lips. "That wasn't luck. That was professional sniping. Who are you really?" Arya sat on a broken slab of concrete, the rifle across her lap. She finally let the secret surface. "Before medicine," she said quietly, "I was with European Special Operations. My brother was lead, I was his spotter." She brushed the brass casing at her throat, voice barely audible. "We weren't just soldiers, we were a team." He made shots that defied physics, and he taught me everything. Her gaze hardened, and for the first time, Phantom Team realized the medic in their ranks was far more than she seemed. 17 kills, one collapse, one promise she swore would never be broken. Her voice dropped into something raw. Darius cut down 17 militants that day, 17 men who thought they were untouchable. The SEAL-inspired unit listened in silence as Arya's eyes went distant, locked on a memory. He cleared a path so the rescue team could get the children out, 8 years old, maybe younger, but when the RPG struck, the rooftop gave way. The canyon wind carried her words like ashes. I watched the greatest sniper I've ever known, my brother, die saving kids he'd never even met. Phantom Team 7 said nothing. There was nothing to say. After the funeral, I erased everything, Arya continued. Requested my sniper record sealed, classified under operational loss, burned my medals, swore never again to take a life. I enrolled in medical school that same month. From then on, I would only save. Eli Torres, pale but alive, rasped, "But you didn't lose the skills." Arya nodded once. "You can't erase what's carved into your soul. Every gunshot wound I treated, I could name the caliber, the range, the angle, my surgical precision. It came from years behind the scope. I just convinced myself I'd never use it again." Mason Grant, wincing from his wound, asked what weighed on all of them. "So what changed today?" Her eyes swept the team. "Bleeding, exhausted, but alive." "You did. When Torres went down, when I realized you'd all die because of my oath, I understood. Sometimes to save lives, you have to take them." Arya pulled a weathered journal from her kit, its pages dense with scrolled diagrams, equations, and fragments of steel taped beside notes. "I've been tracking sniper fire for weeks. Every fragment I pulled from our wounded told a story. These weren't stray rounds. They were crafted, professional, foreign mercenaries maybe." Roar flipped through the pages, his expression hardening. "This is intel work. Why didn't you report it?" "Because I'm a medic," Arya said flatly. "At least that's what I told myself. But Darius always said knowing your enemy is the first step to beating him." She rose, brushing dust from her uniform, her voice sharpened. "Those 3 weren't random shooters. They were part of something bigger, contract killers. High-value targets were their game." From her kit, she unwrapped a bundle, an advanced scope mount, unmistakably military grade. "I dug this out of a wound 2 weeks ago. The soldier was SAS. This doesn't come from black market dealers. Someone with money and reach put them here." Her hand spread across a map of Ravenspire Canyon, lined with angles and red arcs. "I've mapped every sniper field from each casualty. If I'm right, their command post sits 3 clicks north. They're being guided by someone who knows our playbook." Roar's jaw clenched. "How long have you been working this?" "Since the second casualty," Arya admitted. "I thought maybe I could solve it with records, with analysis. I never thought I'd touch a rifle again." Mason exhaled. "Well, I'm damn glad you did, but if there's a command post, this is just the beginning." As if on cue, the radio cracked alive. Massive enemy forces converging on Ravenspire. The mission had shifted. This was no longer extraction. It was survival. When does survival become more than just staying alive? Roar turned to her, voice low, urgent. "Kine, I know you swore off killing, but we need that sniper covering the extraction. Without you, we're slaughtered." Her fingers brushed the brass casing at her throat. Darius's last words burned in her ears. "Every bullet carries a purpose, some wound, some kill, but the most important save lives." She looked at the men around her. Soldiers she had patched, bled with, carried on stretchers. They weren't comrades anymore. They were family. Arya picked up the SR-21 again, sliding into position on the ridge. "Today," she whispered, "my bullets protect my family." The radio hissed. "Reinforcement 6 minutes out." Arya adjusted her scope, the world narrowing into crosshairs. She exhaled. "After this, I'm not just Arya the medic." Her eyes hardened, voice steady. "I'm Arya Kine, and some people only understand one language." Engines roared through Ravenspire. 6 minutes to survive. And Arya Kine was done choosing between healer and hunter. She locked into her position, cheek welded to the SR-21's cold steel, her oath to heal and her oath to protect. Two promises that had warred inside her, finally merged into one truth. Sometimes saving lives required precise violence. The brass casing at her throat burned warm against her skin, pulsing with her slowed breath. The extraction stretched into 4 brutal hours. Every bullet counted, every heartbeat measured. She fired 37 rounds, 33 struck true. The rest scattered enemies into retreat. And from that moment on, no coalition lives were lost. When it ended, she cleaned her rifle, restocked her medkit, and filed her reports as usual. One new line appeared at the bottom: threat assessment and neutralization completed as required. Phantom Team couldn't stop whispering. The silent medic who had become a ghost sniper in the space of heartbeats. Her name spread like wildfire. Arya tried to return to routine. Health checks, supplies, stitches, but nothing was the same. Soldiers approached her now with something different in their eyes. Awe, gratitude. Some asked about her methods. Others just whispered, "Thank you." She brushed it off with the same words. "I did what was necessary." One morning, Eli Torres stepped into her tent, a wooden box in his hands. "The team wanted you to have this." Inside lay 4 brass casings, each engraved with a single word: medic, sniper, protector, sister. Arya picked up the one etched with sister. Her voice caught. "Why?" Tor's voice softened. "Because that's what you are now. Not just the medic, not just the sniper who came out of nowhere, our family, and family takes care of its own." Mason Grant appeared in the doorway, his arm in a sling but his grin intact. "Command confirmed your intel, Kine. The post was right where you said. They're even talking about recognition, maybe cross-training you into counter-sniper ops." She shook her head. "I'm not interested in being a sniper again. What happened was necessary, it doesn't define me." Grant's voice softened. "You saved 30 lives, Arya, not just with medicine but with precision fire. That's who you are, someone who saves however she must." That night Arya sat alone at the range, not to fire but to think. She arranged a small memorial, Darius's photo, the original casing he had given her, and the 4 new ones from Phantom Team. She lifted the casing engraved sister and slid it onto the chain with Darius's original. 2 pieces of brass, 2 halves of her soul, finally joined. "Now I go back to being a medic," she whispered. "But if my soldiers are threatened, I'll be whatever they need me to be." Can you be 2 things at once without losing yourself? The weeks that followed were strange, uncomfortable, like wearing shoes that didn't quite fit anymore. Arya went back to her medical duties, tending wounds, running diagnostics, monitoring vitals. The rhythm of healing she'd known for 3 years, but the soldiers looked at her differently now. When she walked through the compound, conversation stopped. Eyes followed, not with judgment, with something else: respect, wonder, maybe a little fear. She didn't want any of it. The attention made her skin crawl. She had spent 3 years building a wall between who she was and who she used to be. 3 years convincing herself that Arya the healer had replaced Arya the hunter. That one person had died so another could live. But Ravenspire proved what she'd been afraid of all along. You don't bury parts of yourself. You just hide them. And hidden things have a way of coming back. Late one night, unable to sleep, she found herself at the memorial wall. Names etched in metal. Soldiers who'd given everything. Her finger traced over a few she'd tried to save. Failed to save. Torres found her there. Quiet, just standing beside her for a while before speaking. "You know what's amazing about you, Doc?" he finally said. "You carry both." She didn't turn to look at him. "Both what?" "Life and death," he said simply. "Most of us, we're one or the other. Healers who can't fight, fighters who can't heal. But you hold them both in your hands, and somehow you haven't let either one destroy you." Arya's throat tightened. "It feels like it's destroying me." Torres shook his head. "No, it's building you, making you whole. You think Darius would want you to cut yourself in half, pretend one side doesn't exist." She finally looked at him, eyes wet. I don't know what he'd want, he's gone. But his lesson isn't, Torres said. He taught you to be precise, to see what others miss, to act when it matters most. That's not just about pulling a trigger, Doc. That's about knowing when to heal and when to fight, when to save and when to stop the threat. You don't have to choose, you already are both. The next morning, command called her in. Captain Haldon sat behind his desk, looking older than usual, tired. Kine, we need to talk about your future. Her stomach dropped. Sir, if this is about Ravenspire, he held up a hand. It's exactly about Ravenspire, and it's about what comes next. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside were reports, incident analyses, and a recommendation form. They want to cross-train you, officially, make you dual-certified, combat medic and counter-sniper. It's rare, almost unheard of, but after what you did, he paused. After what you did, they'd be fools not to use both your skills. Arya stared at the papers, her hands flat on the desk. And if I refuse, Haldon leaned back. Then you refuse. This isn't an order, Kine, it's an opportunity. But I'll be honest with you, we need people like you. People who can see the battlefield from both sides, who can protect and save in the same breath. She thought about Darius, about the brass casing at her throat, about the 4 new ones on the chain, about Tor's words. You already are both. How long do I have to decide? She asked. Take whatever time you need, Haldon said. But know this, whether you accept or not, you've already changed. You can't unknow what you learned about yourself in that canyon. He was right, and that was the hardest part. Arya left his office and went straight to the range, not the medical bay, the range. She picked up a rifle, felt its weight, closed her eyes, and for the first time in 3 years she didn't feel guilt. She felt ready. Maybe she didn't have to choose. Maybe Tor's was right. Maybe Darius's greatest lesson wasn't about shooting. It was about integration, about accepting all the parts of yourself, even the ones that scare you, especially the ones that scare you. She fired one round, just one. It hit dead center, and in that moment Arya Kine made her decision. What does it cost to accept who you really are? 3 weeks later, Arya Kine stood in a briefing room with 15 other specialists. Counter-sniper operations training, advanced ballistics, tactical medicine under fire. She was the only woman in the room, the only one cross-training from medical. She felt their eyes on her, measuring, judging, waiting to see if she'd fold. The instructor, a grizzled veteran named Sergeant Major Reeve, walked in, looked around the room. His gaze landed on Arya and stayed there. You're Kine. It wasn't a question. Yes, sir. You're the medic who dropped 3 hostiles in Ravenspire. Yes, sir. He nodded slowly. Good. Then you already know what the rest of these candidates are about to learn. Being a sniper isn't about killing. It's about control, timing, knowing when to take the shot and when to hold it. Welcome to hell. The training was brutal, physically, mentally, emotionally. She spent hours in prone position, calculating windage, elevation, temperature differentials. She ran medical scenarios under simulated fire, had to choose between treating casualties and engaging targets. Failed half her runs the first week, but she didn't quit. The other candidates started to respect her, not because she was perfect, because she was relentless. When she failed, she analyzed, adjusted, tried again. She brought medical precision to every shot, treating each trigger pull like a surgical incision, exact, necessary, clean. One night after a particularly difficult exercise, another candidate named Rivera sat beside her. You really believe you can be both? He asked. Healer and hunter. Arya was quiet for a long moment. I don't know if I can, but I know I have to try, because the battlefield doesn't care about our labels. It only cares about who survives. Rivera nodded. My brother was a medic, KIA 2 years ago, couldn't defend himself when it mattered. His voice cracked. If he'd been like you, maybe he'd still be here. Arya felt the weight of his words, the weight of all the soldiers who died because they could only do one thing, who'd been locked into roles that limited them. I'm sorry about your brother, she said softly. Rivera stood. Don't be sorry, just don't quit. People like you, The ones who can do both. You're worth 100 of us." Weeks turned into months. The training never got easier, but Arya got stronger. She learned to compartmentalize, to shift between healer mode and hunter mode without losing herself in either. She learned to live with the duality, to accept that she contained multitudes, that she didn't have to be just one thing. The final test came 6 months after Ravenspire. A simulated mission, hostage extraction under heavy fire, medical casualties, sniper threats. She had to do it all. Lead the medical team, identify and neutralize enemy snipers, keep her people alive. The scenario was designed to break her, to force her to choose. But Arya didn't choose. She did both, simultaneously, directing medical care while taking calculated shots, saving lives and ending threats in the same breath. When the simulation ended, she stood in the center of the kill house, breathing hard, covered in training rounds and fake blood, but standing. Reeve walked up to her, silent, studying her. "In 20 years of training snipers," he said finally, "I've never seen anyone operate the way you just did. You didn't switch between roles. You integrated them, made them one." He extended his hand. "Congratulations, Kine, you're certified." That night Arya added one more brass casing to her chain, this one engraved with a single word: whole. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. Arya Kine returned to Iron Watch Outpost as a different person, not because she'd changed, because she'd finally accepted who she'd always been. Phantom Team 7 welcomed her back like a hero, but Arya didn't feel like a hero. She felt like someone who'd stopped running from herself. Her new role was unique. Officially, combat medic counter-sniper operations. Unofficially, the person who bridged two worlds. She still ran the medical bay, still treated wounds, still saved lives with her hands. But now, when threats emerged, she also climbed to the ridge, scanned the horizon, protected her people with precision fire. Some soldiers struggled with it, couldn't reconcile the gentle medic who stitched their wounds with the ghost sniper who eliminated threats 900 meters out. But the ones who mattered, the ones who'd been in Ravenspire, they understood. Tors said it best. She's not a medic who fights or a sniper who heals. She's both, all the time. That's what makes her dangerous, and what makes her irreplaceable. Missions came. Some required only her medical skills, others required only her tactical skills, most required both. She learned to flow between them, to be whatever the moment demanded. A wound needed stitches. She was there with steady hands and soft words. A sniper threatened her team. She was there with cold steel and colder resolve. But the hardest part wasn't the work. It was the nights, the quiet hours when she was alone with her thoughts, when the faces of the men she'd killed stared back at her, when the weight of being both savior and executioner pressed down like a physical thing. Those nights, she'd hold the brass casings on her chain, all 6 of them now, each one a piece of who she was. Medic, sniper, protector, sister, whole, and one more she'd added herself, human. Because that's what she was, not a machine, not a weapon, not just a healer, human, flawed, struggling, doing her best in an impossible world, making impossible choices, carrying impossible weight. One evening, a young private named Chen approached her in the medical bay, nervous, uncertain. "Doc, can I ask you something?" "Of course." Chen looked down at his hands. "How do you do it? How do you live with both?" Arya understood immediately. "You're struggling with something," he nodded. "I froze last week. There was a guy down, bleeding out, and I just froze, couldn't move, couldn't help. And then when fire came in, I froze again, couldn't engage. I'm useless at both." Arya set down the supplies she'd been organizing, looked at him directly. "You're not useless. You're learning, and freezing, that's not weakness. That's your brain protecting you from things it doesn't understand yet." "But you don't freeze," Chen said. You're perfect at it." Arya almost laughed. "I'm not perfect, far from it. I froze for 3 years, Chen, completely frozen. Locked myself into one role because I was terrified of the other. It took watching people die to break me out of it. And even now, some nights I wake up shaking, questioning every choice, every shot, every life saved and every life taken. Chen looked surprised. Really? Really, Arya said. The difference isn't that I don't feel it, it's that I've learned to act anyway, to trust my training, to accept that perfect clarity never comes. You just have to choose, and then live with the choice. How do you live with it? Chen asked quietly. Arya touched the brass casings at her throat. I remember why. Every person I've killed, I killed to save someone else. Every person I've saved, I saved because someone gave me the chance to do both. The guilt doesn't go away, but neither does the purpose. Chen nodded slowly. Thank you, Doc. Any time, Arya said. And Chen, you're going to be fine. Give yourself time, give yourself grace. None of us figures this out overnight. 6 months after her certification, Command sent Arya on a special assignment. A hostage situation. Medical officer down. Sniper threat confirmed. They needed someone who could extract the medic and neutralize the threat. Someone who could do both. She was the only choice. The mission was textbook, quiet insertion, precision elimination of hostile sniper, extraction of the wounded medic under fire, 0 friendly casualties, mission success. But on the flight back, sitting beside the medic she'd saved, Arya felt something shift. The medic, a young woman named Sarah, looked at her with tears streaming down her face. You saved my life. Arya shook her head. I did my job. No, Sarah insisted. You did more than that. You showed me what's possible. I've always felt like I had to choose, be a medic or be a soldier, but you're both. You're proof it's possible. And in that moment, Arya realized something. Her journey wasn't just about accepting herself. It was about showing others what was possible, about being living proof that you don't have to be one thing, that you can contain multitudes. That strength isn't about choosing a lane. It's about owning every part of who you are. Back at Iron Watch, Arya resumed her dual role. She trained, she healed, she protected, she lived. And on the wall of the medical bay, someone had written something. She didn't know who, but she read it every day. Sometimes the one who saves lives is also the one who removes the threat. Arya once believed burying her sniper past was the only way to heal, but Ravenspire proved something different. Healing and fighting were never opposites. They were the same promise, the promise to protect life, however necessary. The casings on her chain told that truth. 1 for sacrifice, 4 for family, 1 for wholeness, 1 for humanity. She was not just medic or sniper, she was both. Because to protect the living, sometimes you must also end the threat. Not with rage, not with hatred, but with precision, with purpose. With the understanding that dignity doesn't always speak. Sometimes it acts, quietly, decisively, without apology. And in that action, in that acceptance of duality, Arya Kine found something she'd been searching for since Darius died. She found peace. Not the peace of forgetting, the peace of integration, of becoming whole, of accepting that she was both light and shadow, both creator and destroyer, both healer and hunter. And that was enough. That was everything. That was who she was meant to be all along.